lesson where we've been talking about your plant kingdom. So we've completed most of the parts of it. Now we're going to start with gymnosperms, which are like these organisms will start producing seeds. Before this, there was no seed production, right? So dispersal of the organism or the plant took place by spores. Now we will have seeds. So let's look at them. What kind of seeds these organisms have, right? So the word gymnosperm comes from a Greek word which has gymno, which means naked, and sperma means seed. Hence they have naked seeds. Now, if you want to understand what naked seed is, I want you to imagine a fruit. A fruit will always have seeds. For example, apple. Apple has seeds, right? For example, mango has a drupe, is a seed, right? For example, your citrus fruits, which is like lemon, they all have seeds, right? They have seeds inside the fruit. Here, it's not there. Here, the seeds are not present inside a fruit, they're present out in the air. The gymnosperms are seed producing plants. But unlike angiosperms, they produce seeds without fruits. So there is no fruit present here, they're just seeds. These plants develop on the surface of the scales and the leaves, all at the end of the stalk, forming a cone-like structure. Look at these structures, right? So they will form a cone-like structure. Also, one thing to see here is look at the leaves of here. These plants, they're like spines, right? So they don't have a lot of open leaves. They have tentacles which are like seeds, which are like leaves. And if you look at the history of when we found our first angiosperm, it goes to Paleozoic era, which is like 390 million years ago, right? So 390 million years ago, we have an fossil evidence saying that they might have existed back then. Right, let's look at other points of my gymnosperms. First is that gymnosperms are the plants in which ovules are not enclosed within the ovary walls, unlike angiosperms. I think you must have seen a flower known as hibiscus, which looks like this. Then it has leaves. This is like the standard flowering plant that we all draw, right? This is hibiscus. In this, ovule is present in the middle structure, where there's this structure, then the stalk, and ovule is present in this structure, the middle structure. So here is where the ovule is present. This is known as the ovary, the stigma, the style, and the stigma, right? So this is where the ovule is present. This is what the diagram is showing, the comparison between the ovule of a gymnosperm and an angiosperm. Angiosperm, like I drew here, has this structure in which my ovule is present. Here it is not like that. There is no ovary present like as such. They're just present on the cone itself, right? It remains exposed before and after fertilization. So irrespective of if the fertilization has taken place or not, the ovule will always stay in the air open before developing into a seed. Then it develops into a seed. The stem of the gymnosperms can be branched or unbranched, right? So the stems can either be branched like this, right? Or they can be just like this. Stems present like this. I will show you a diagram, you will understand what this is saying. The thick cuticle, needle-like leaves are present and there is a sunken stomata. If you remember, the stomata is present on the surface of the leaf. Here the stomata is a little inside so that the rate of loss of water is reduced, so that the plant does not lose a lot of water. Now look at the characteristics. First is that they do not produce any kind of flower. They have cone structures. The seeds are not inside the fruit, they are naked, right? So first, second, third. They are found in colder regions where snowfall occurs. So that is the kind of places that they live in, habitat. Fourth is that they develop needle-like leaves. I told you there are tentacle-like leaves present there. Fifth is that they're perennial, present all around the year. They're woody and they're forming trees or bushes. So either they're present in the form of trees or they're present in the forms of bushes. Sixth is that they do not differentiate into ovary, style and stigma, which was this structure that I drew in the last slide. There is no stigma, style and ovary present in this structure. It just have cone structures. This cone structure has everything that it needs. The stigma is absent. The pollination is directly by wind. Now, what is happening? If you try to fertilize this ovule, the pollen grain will fall here, then go inside. But here there is no structure like that present. So what will happen? Simple air can come with the pollen grain and fertilize the ovule. Eighth is that the male gametophyte produces two gametes, which is same as angiosperms. But only one of them is functional. In angiosperms, both of them are functional. Here only one of them is functional. So only one of them is capable of fertilizing the egg. Now they form cones, like I said, as reproductive structures. So the cone structure that I showed you was a reproductive structure. The seeds contain endosperm. Endosperm is a nutritive thing for my embryo. So while my embryo is developing in the flower or the fruit, that is when they eat endosperm, so that they can get nutrition for their growth. Because in humans what happens is there is a placenta or the umbilical cord, right? So that is how in humans we get nutrition. But here there is no umbilical cord present to connect the body of the parent plant to the embryo. So that is why endosperm is present, so that endosperm can store food for the growth and the development of the plant, which is more like the embryo, right? These plants have vascular tissues which will help in transportation of nutrients and water. But again, xylem will not have vesicles and phloem does not have companion cells and sieve tubes. If you remember the types of xylem and phloem, so there were vesicles, there were sieve tubes, companion cells, all these are here absent. One of the angiosperms, which is the giant redwood or square, is the tallest tree species. It's the tallest tree species. It's an it's a gymnosperm. So roots are generally tap roots. What are tap roots? When you have a root like this, there's a main axis of the root and then laterally other roots are coming out of it. So this is my tap root, right? Then the roots in some genera of have fungal associations like mycorrhiza, like in Pinus. I will show you Pinus and Cycas because they are the most important gymnosperms. So there is a mycorrhiza association. If you remember, how is mycorrhiza association? When fungus has an association with higher plants, that is what it is. In some others like Cycas, they have specialized roots which are colloid roots. They are in association with N2 cyanobacteria. These roots look like this. They have a bulb-like structure on the head, like this. Bulb-like structures are present. Why? Because there is a cyanobacteria present which is fixing the nitrogen around it, right? So these are colloid roots. The stems are unbranched like in Cycas or can be branched, for example in Pinus, and the leaves are simple or compound. Simple leaf is this. Compound leaf is when they are not leaves, they are actually leaflets present. This is my compound leaf. So this is my simple leaf, this is my compound leaf. In Cycas, the pinnate leaves persist for a few days. These kinds of leaf persist for a few days. Pinnate leaves are compound leaves. These leaves in gymnosperms have well adapted to withstand extreme temperature, humidity and wind. So it will withstand all these environments. In conifers, there are needle-like leaves. Conifers are like having a pinus, right? and reduces the surface area. Like the first photo that I showed you, it was needle-like leaves. They are reducing the surface area, so there is less evaporation happening of water, right? Their thick cuticle and sunken stomata help in reduction of water loss. That's what we talked about. This is Cycas and this is Pinus. So cycas you must have seen outside your buildings where there's, gardens. These are very, very common in gardens. This is Pinus, right? They have this cone-like structure. A lot of people have this as a showpiece in their house. Even I have it. Not here though. But I'll show you this. There's a Pinus. It's a cone. It's kept like a showpiece in houses. Now, the gymnosperms are heterospores. Hetero means different, spores means spores. So they will produce haploid microspore and a megaspore. So though both type of spores are produced. The two kinds of spores that are produced in with sporangia that are born with my sporophylls. Sporophylls are present on the leaf structures, which are arranged spirally around the axis to form lax or compact strobili or cones. So these cone-like structures in spiral formation will have sporophylls. Now because I said there's no fruit, right, and leaves are needle-like, so what will happen? The cone structure will contain my sporangia. In that sporangia, both my microspores and megaspores will be formed, which is my male gamete and the female gamete. So strobili, this structure, right, these strobili bear microsporophyll or microsporophyll and microsporangia. They are known as microsporangiate or male strobili, right? So male strobili is known as microsporangiate and it will have two structures, microsporophyll and microsporangia. Microspores develop into male gametophytic generation, which is highly reduced and is conified to only have limited number of cells. Look at this plant, these organisms, they're trying to live at the minimal. So these are like the minimalist, right? So minimalist have the least amount of everything. So they will have least amount of number of cells. The leaves are also, shrunken, they're needle-like, their stomata is sunken into the leaves. So all things are like minimalist. They're trying to reduce, less evaporation must happen, less number of cells should be formed. So they're living like for survival, basic survival. The reduced this gametophyte is now known as pollen grain. So the gametophytes are actually reducing, like I said, they're highly reduced and conified. Those are known as my pollen grains. So the development of pollen grains takes place with the microsporangia. In the microsporangia, my pollen grains are formed. The cone bearing megasporophyll. Now this is female. The other one, the upper one, this one was male. With ovule or megasporangia is known as macrosporangiate or female strobili. The male and female cones or strobili may be born in the same plant like Pinus, or they in the cycas male cones and female cones are born in different trees. So this plant can either be a female plant or a male plant. This can be both a male and a female plant together. Megaspore mother cell, female mother cell is differentiated from one cell of the nucellus. What is nucellus? If this is my ovule, there is a megaspore mother cell present, megaspore mother cell. Around this, all this is nucellus, right? So nucellus is protected by an envelope and a composite structure known as ovule. This lining, the outermost is ovule. The ovules are borne on megasporophyll, which may be clustered to form a female cone. So all these are clustered together to form a female cone. A megaspore mother cell divides mitotically to form 4 megaspores. This is my megaspore mother cell. Meiosis, forming 4 megaspores. Then each megaspore, right? One megaspore enclosed in the develop into a multicellular female gametophyte. This will develop into a female gametophyte, which will have again this structure, right? This female gametophyte that is developed will bear two or more archegonia, which are female sex organs. The multicellular female gametophyte is also retained within the megasporangia. So this is what is happening. The female and the male gametophyte do not have independent free existence. Now before gymnosperms, all algae, bryophyta and pteridophyta, they had a capability of their gametophyte stage staying independently. Here it is not possible. The male part and the female part will be stuck to the flower. Pollination will happen. They remain within the sporangia retained on the sporophyte. So sporophyte will have my gametophyte stage. They are not independent of free living. The pollen grain is released from microsporangium. They are carried by air current and come in contact with the opening of the ovule. If you remember, we drew ovule like this. So this is where the my microsporangium can come in, right? The pollen tube carries the male gamete grow towards the archegonia, this structure, in the ovule and discharges their content near the mouth of the archegonia. So here my content will be released. Like I said, there are two cells, male germ cells, but only one of them is viable to fertilize. Following fertilization, zygote develops into an embryo and the ovule into a seed. So what will happen? The seeds are not covered. I think there's a diagram. Yeah. But before that, let me show you. So what is happening? This structure is, this will develop into zygote. This structure will develop into seed. Right? So they will develop into larger forms. Let's talk about the life cycle. This is mature sporophyte. This is a tree, as you can see. The tree has branches, needle-like leaves. It's a pinus, right? So they are pine cones, right? So the male cone has less number of cones present and have spore sacs. Each spore sac has spores which are haploid, right? So what is happening? The male cone has a structure. Each cone has a potential pollen grain, right? Now meiosis is happening so that the spores can be haploid. So haploid spores, why haploid spores? Why is meiosis happening here? Because this organism is diploid. So we will need haploid gametophytes coming together forming a diploid zygote. So there are spores present. On the other hand, in the female, how is it present? This is a cone leaf, right? Each cone leaf has an ovule structure at the end, right? So these are present. Then they will undergo meiosis forming a spore, which is again haploid. Then both of these will have fusion together forming an egg. Sorry, no, no. Before that, when this spore is there, right, what will happen? Again mitosis will happen so that the number of spores can increase, because here the mitosis has already happened. The male spores, which are now haploid, have undergone mitosis to increase the number of pollen grains, right? So what is happening? This is one possible gametophyte. It is developing into four after meiosis. Then each of them will undergo mitosis, increasing the number of pollen grains, right? So that is what is happening. Once that has happened, here also same thing will happen. They will undergo mitosis, developing into spores. Three of them will degenerate actually. One of them will undergo mitosis. Once this has happened, there are gametophytes and their eggs present in the gametophyte. Now fertilization will take place, forming a zygote, right? So there are eggs present, right? And the sperm will enter from this end, right? Once that has happened, fertilization has taken place. Now what will happen? If you look at this structure, it is like this. Zygote has developed into an embryo. This is a seed. Like I said, the ovule will develop into a seed. This is an embryo. And this middle part, this is my food, reserved food material. Reserved food material. So this is what is happening. Then this can develop into a new sporophyte and then a mature sporophyte. Understood? This is almost as similar as it can get to my angiosperms. It's the same thing, except there is no cones present in angiosperms. Angiosperms have flower structures. So except those presence of flowers, the process is almost same. Same thing is happening. Both of them are undergoing meiosis first, then mitosis to increase the number. Then there is fertilization happening, formation of diploid zygote. Then embryo is formed where seed is present. Seeds are naked. Then young spore. Sorry. So these seeds can develop into new sporophytes, right? That is my life cycle. Now let's look at this structure. There are gymnosperm seeds and there are closed seeds, right? Closed cones. So what is happening? Look at this structure. Here, these are like my cone scales, right? Inside cone scales, these are structures like this, right? There are structures. These structures are my immature seeds, right? These are smaller in size and the cone scale is way much larger than these. Now, once this has developed, what will happen? The cone scale will reduce in size while the seeds will increase in size. This is a ripened seed. The size of the seeds have developed. They are larger now. So this is what is happening. If you look at it, seeds does not have any kind of fruit present. On the other hand, in angiosperms, what happens is if this is my apple, in the middle, seeds are present. In cucumber also, in the middle, seeds are present. Papaya has seeds, right? Your melon has seeds. Watermelon has seeds. All there are a lot of seeds present. There might be one, there might be poly, right? A lot of seeds present. This is how this is a fruit and this is a seed. Here there is no fruit present. There are just cone scales present. On the cone scale I have a seed. So this is what is there in gymnosperms. I hope this is clear what is happening in your gymnosperms. There should be no doubt about gymnosperms. Very easy organisms, very minimalist and has the least kind of disturbances in their life. Look at this. I said nucellus. This is nucellus. These are providing nutrition to my organism, right? This is micropyle. Now this is very important. Let's discuss that. There are different kind of ovules present. This is an ornithotropous ovule. Ornithotropous means that the micropyle is present above everything. Ornithotropous. So micropyle is present above everything. Below that there is my all the structures. Integuments are present there. Then there is a structure known as ovule, funicle and hymen, hilum. Funicle and hilum. These are now if I attach this with my seed or my cone, it will be attached to my cone like this. So this is my cone structure. So that is what is happening. Here in angiosperms there are a lot of types of ovules. Ornithotropous, if I show it with my hand, it will be like this. Opening, micro. Okay, so micropyle end is the open end. Open. And it is said that it is above everything. Above everything. What do I mean when I say above everything? I mean that every other structure that is present in the ovule will be below this. Integuments, nucellus, megasporocyte, all these will be below it. my funicle, my other parts. Funicle is the stalk through which it will be attached to the parts, right? Here there is funicle. So this is like the structure. So my micropyle will be present above. Other than that, if it's like this, there can be a ovule which can be like this. Others can be like 90-degree. There can be this, okay, and there can be a structure which is 360-degree inverted. So they can be 90-degree inverted. This is like straight. This is a straight structure. There can be a 90-degree structure. There can be an inverted structure which is 180-degree. Like this structure which can have the micropyle end at the lower end, right? So there can be a 180-degree tilt. There can be a 360-degree tilt too, right? In which what will happen? My ovule will be like this. It should be like this. Ornithotropis, it will turn like this, right? So there's an 80 turn. Other than that, there are some in which there is a structure like this. So the micropyle end will be a little. How do I turn my? This is 90. This is also a type in which the micropyle end is a little lower. Other than that, there's a horseshoe shape present too, like this. My ovule turns into a horseshoe shape. So that is different types. We can talk about them in detail when we'll talk about angiosperms, because gymnosperms majorly have an ornithotropis ovule. So that is what you need to remember, right? So that is it for my gymnosperms. I hope you have understood. The last part of the chapter is left, which is angiosperms. Then there is only my alteration of generation that we need to talk about. So let's wrap this lecture here, right? Please revise this, then come to the next lecture where we will talk about angiosperms. Till then, bye bye, take care. next lecture, we will start with your permanent tissues. So let's get started with what your permanent tissues are and what are the type of permanent tissue that you need to learn. So in the last lecture, we talked about what are meristematic tissues. They give rise to the plant structure. These are meristematic tissues are like building block of your entire tissue system, right? So meristematic tissues, once they have developed structures like stem, they leave out axillary buds that later develop into leaves or branches. So after these structures have been made, the lower ones, if this is the plant growth, so the plant is growing from here right now, so the lower part that was once a meristematic cell that was growing are now permanent because they have developed whatever they had to develop. They might have developed a branch, they might have developed a leaf, but they are now all done with the structure. So these meristematic cells will gradually differentiate and they will become mature and permanent. So this is how meristematic tissues give rise to your permanent tissues. Meristematic tissues that have developed the structures that they had to will later gradually develop, differentiate, and will develop into a permanent tissue. The permanent tissue actually composed of cells in which the growth has stopped. That's exactly what permanent tissue to what do you mean? Meristematic tissue to permanent tissue differentiation is. These cells, this one is still growing. This is your meristematic tissue, the lower one. These have developed whatever they had to develop. So there's no growth anymore in this part of the plant. There might be a lateral growth later in life, but right now it has stopped. So this is turned into a permanent tissue because the growth here, the height growth if you want to call it, has stopped. The diagram in this slide shows about what are the kind of permanent tissues that we're going to study. The first one is your parenchyma, which is this one, your collenchyma, this one, your sclerenchyma. These are your simple permanent tissues, and this is phloem, and this one is xylem. These are the complex permanent tissues that we're going to study in the later section. This is all the type of tissues that are present, that are permanent tissues. So this one is your parenchyma. It has mesophyll, chloroplast, vacuole, and cell nucleus. There's also air spaces between the plants between the cells, and there's also spongy mesophyll. This first one and the last one are from the same type, which is your parenchyma. So we also have bundle sheath cells. This is the bigger one. Then there's vacuole present. There's this transparent outline. So that is your vacuole, and this presence of chlorophyll, which is your dark green patches. So these dark green patches are your chlorophylls. Again, this is your spongy mesophyll. We're going to talk about what spongy mesophyll is in the later stage. So these were the first one and the last one are your parenchyma cells. If we talk about collenchyma, they're present here in the later part. They're collenchyma cells and majorly this primary cell wall. So this primary wall, why does they do not have any kind of secondary wall is something that we're going to study. These are present here. If you move to the third type of cell, which is sclerenchyma, the sclerenchyma has fibers. They have permanent cell wall, secondary cell wall, and lumen. So there's going to be a primary wall, secondary wall, and the lumen. The gaps, this gap, this. The gaps between the cell is your lumen. These are the three type of simple permanent tissues that we're going to study. If we talk about your xylem and phloem have parenchyma cells. They have vessel elements. They have perforation plates. Why do they have this? Because they need the major function of my xylem and phloem is to transfer matter from above the plant to the roots and from roots to the leaves. So this is why they have perforating plates. There are certain pits present. There's also primary and secondary both type of cell walls. The tracheae present. These are different type of xylems that we're going to talk about. If you talk about phloem has sieve plates, not perforation plates. Perforation plates are a lot bigger than your sieve plates. Then there's sieve tube elements present. There's plasmodesmata. What is plasmodesmata? The gap between here for transfer of material is your plasmodesmata. Then there's intermediary cells present. There's companion cells, cell nucleus, vacuole, and parenchyma cells present in your phloem too. If you look at this part, there's the transfer cell, cell wall, and ingrowths present. We're also going to talk about what are these ingrowths on your plants. So these are the major types of tissues that we're going to study when we talk about your permanent tissues. Let's start with your simple permanent tissues. So these are still permanent, but they're simple means they're only one type of cell that we're talking about. It's not a complex structure where all type of cells are in together in a bundle and performing different functions. So this is a simple tissue that is going to perform only one function and has almost same morphology. The diagram shows two sections of each. A part is your lengthwise section if you're cutting your plant like this. The B part is your cross section if you cut your plant like this. So if you cut your plant, the parenchyma cells look like this if you're cutting them longitudinally or lengthwise. If you cut your plant cross sectionally, so this is how your parenchyma cells are going to look, and there's always going to be intercellular spaces between them. The collenchyma cells longitudinally look like this. It's like a mesh, right? On the other hand, when we talk about their cross section, they have thick cell walls and they're circular almost. Now talking about sclerenchyma, sclerenchyma are like fibers. So these fiber-like cells are present and the cell wall is made up of lignin. On the other hand, they also have lumen present between them. So it is going to be a cell with a lot of lumen in middle. And they are also known as stone cells. We're going to talk about why they are known as stone cells. So this, again, the fiber is your longitudinal section, and where you can see the lumen clearly is your cross section. Let's move to the first type of simple permanent tissues that we have to talk, which is your parenchyma cells. They are living, they are simple and permanent tissues composed of thin cell-walled cells. So the walls of the cell is very thin, which is why in the diagram it shows thin primary cell wall. Right. So parenchyma, the word means para means beside, enkyne means to pour. So they are known as primary tissues or ground tissues. Right. It is present in the cortex. Cortex is the outermost layer of your plant. If this is your plant, the outermost is epidermis. Right under epidermis, your cortex is present. Pith is the middle section. If you pour a needle in the middle, right in the middle of the stem, it will touch the pith of the plant. Then there is palisade and your mesophyll. Palisade and mesophylls are the part in between the right after the pith. So this is your cortex right under the and this is your pith. In middle there is both palisade and your mesophylls present. And there are other parts of the plants or the flowers specifically there where your parenchyma cells are present. It is mostly produced by the ground tissues. So your ground tissues will produce this. We talked about ground tissues in your meristematic tissues. So that is the exact same ground tissue that we're talking about here. They will give rise to your parenchyma cells. The parenchyma term is major component of within the organ. So parenchyma are major organs that we're going to talk about. This is your diagram of a leaf. So if you look at the leaf structure, the uppermost is your epidermis. Right below your epidermis, there's going to be a cuticle present, right? This line. There's also, presence of other like chloroplast, your phloem and xylem. Phloem and xylem are present like this. That is why we call them complex permanent tissues, because they're present in the form of bundles, and those bundles does not only have single type of cells, they have a different kinds of cells in the same vascular bundle. Looking at these are your palisades, and below here this is your spongy parenchyma. Both of these together, palisade and spongy, makes up your mesophyll. This is your somatal pore that has opened. These are your guard cells. Again, this is your epidermis. Right. So this is how your leaf structure looks like. Stomata is present on the lower structure. Right. Upper structure has epidermis, and sometimes it have appendages that we're going to talk about in detail. Lower in that is your mesophyll along with your vascular bundles. Talking about the characteristics of your parenchyma cells. How do you know that a cell is a parenchyma cell? So the first one that comes into your head should always be that they're thin walled and they're less spherical or polyhedral. Less spherical and polyhedral is known as isodiametric. So if you're defining a cell, it is less spherical and almost polyhedral, then you can say that the cell is isodiametric in nature. The cell wall is composed of cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. So my cell wall is going to be cellulose, hemicellulose and pectin. There's no thick wall present here, there's just primary cell wall present. The cells have large central vacuoles, peripheral cytoplasm and a nucleus. So what is going to happen if this is my cell? There's a large central vacuole, your nucleus and peripheral cytoplasm. On the periphery of the cell, you're going to have cytoplasm. The cell may be either closely packed or have small intercellular spaces. So either the other cell can be like this with this cell, like literally into the other cell, or it can be with a small intercellular space. So this is going to be my intercellular space. So this is how the cells of your parenchyma looks like. Talking about the classifications of your parenchyma, the type of parenchyma can differ. There is chlorenchyma, which is specified for your photosynthesis. It will have chloroplast structure around it. Then there's erenchyma for air system of the entire plant. There's storage parenchyma that stores your sugar, protein granules and your oil drops. These are your reserved food material. Then there is xylem parenchyma for conduction of water, phloem parenchyma, which is for your translocation of food. Then there is stellate parenchyma, which is star-shaped parenchymatous tissues with large air spaces. Right. So these are the type of parenchyma that we know of. Look at these. So this is your normal parenchyma with a small cell wall which is thin, made up of cellulose, hemicellulose or pectin. There's cytoplasm, large central vacuole and a nucleus with intercellular spaces. That is all that is present in your parenchyma cells. Chlorenchyma on the other hand has chlorophyll around it. Aerenchyma has air cavity central. This is your prosenchyma. These are how they look. And epidermal parenchyma will be present on the epidermis having cuticles. This is your xylem parenchyma and this is your mesophyll parenchyma. Mesophyll parenchyma has two types of parenchyma in them, like we said, palisade and your spongy parenchyma. So these are the type of parenchyma that you need to learn about and you need to remember. Talking about what is the function of your parenchyma, why do we have parenchyma at all in your cells? They help in storage of food, water and air. Like we said, reserved food material is stored in your parenchymas. Then there is vital activities like photosynthesis in your chlorenchyma, respiration, erenchyma, conduction of air, conduction of carried out by parenchyma. Conductions, your xylem parenchyma and phloem parenchyma. So it will help in wound healing and grafting. Grafting and wound healing is when the cell is hurt and they're trying to make up the make up for the lost parts. Also provide buoyancy to the aquatic plants. Aerenchyma will have air, so the plant will be able to stay on the surface of the water and not drown down. Parenchyma cells associated with xylem and phloem have help in conduction of water, food material. These cells can de-differentiate, acquire a power of division to form your secondary meristem, which is your secondary tissues. So these parenchyma can later in life, when they need to grow in the girth, they will develop into lateral meristem. This was your all about that you need to learn about your parenchyma. This will be all. Structure, types, functions are majorly important and you need to remember the types with where is what type present. Talking about your collenchyma. Collenchyma comes from a word which is Greek in origin, which is colla, which is glue, and enchyma, which is infusion. So they're going to be fused together. It is simple, living, mechanical tissue. Why did we say living here? Because not all tissues in your plants are living. Like hair, human hair is non-living. It's a dead cell. So are your nails, but they're still growing, right? So these are the type of non-living cells that tissues that we can have. Collenchyma is living, so is your parenchyma. Its cell is composed of more or less elongated cells with thick primary non-lignified walls. Intercellular spaces are found to be absent. There is no intercellular spaces, but the cell wall is thick. Look at the first structure. This is your angular collenchyma. The cell wall, the blue color, is very, very thick. Then there is thickening at the angular wall. So when these are three cells coming together, there's a thickness present here, right? Which is why they're known as angular collenchyma, because they have thickness at the angles when they're joining two or three cells together. There's a large vacuole present in the middle, and there's a nucleus present on the side. So this is your normal parenchyma. There are other types known as lacunate collenchyma. This is how they look. They have lacunae present. We're going to talk about that in detail too. This is your lamellar thickening. So this is known as your lamellar collenchyma. They have lamella present. So they are going to present at where your lamellas are. Talking about collenchyma characteristics, why do we call a tissue as collenchyma? It is present only in aerial parts of the plant body. So it is not going to be present under your ground system, which is they're only present in your shoot system. It is found either as homogeneous layers or as patches. So either a parenchyma, your collenchyma cell can be present in the entire patch like this, homogeneously, or they can have small patches, right? Collenchyma consists of cells which is much thickened at the corner due to deposition of cellulose, hemicellulose, and pectin. So the cell wall is normal, but cell wall has angular depositions, which is why there is thickening at the wall due to presence of cellulose, hemicellulose, or pectin. The cell may be oval, spherical, polygonal, and often contains chloroplast. These cells assimilate food when they contain chloroplast. So they're going to make food when they have chloroplast present in them. Talking about how much pectin is present in the plant, there are three types of collenchymas: angular, having angular thickenings; lamellar, which is present on the lamellar structure; and lacunae. Um, I don't think there's a structure. So if you're talking about your leaf structure, leaf has lamella wherever there is. Leaf has lamella present. Along with lamella, there is lacunar present. So this is like a space between the cells. The space between your lamellar cells and around structures is your lacunar structures. So they will have lacunae collenchyma. So there's angular, which is present on the normal surfaces. Then there's lamellar, present at the lamellar structure, which is your surface where your stomata and stuff will be present. Around that, wherever there is space, is your lacunar collenchyma. What are the functions? If you talk about, there is a mechanical support provided by collenchyma to the plants, such as young stems, because they do not want to fall, so they try to stand up using your collenchyma cells, and petiole of the leaf. Petiole is the stalk of the leaf that is connecting your leaf to the stem, right? So this is your petiole. If petiole does not have collenchyma, it will not stay like this. It will actually fall down. So this, instead of standing up like this, will be like, they would not try to stand up. Even further, they can even, fall down like this. The petioles have your collenchyma to provide mechanical support so that the leaf can stay upright in the atmosphere. Collenchyma cells are capable of photosynthesis, and because they contain chloroplast. Wherever there is chloroplast, there is going to be certain amount of chlorophyll present. Wherever there is chlorophyll, the part of that plant is going to be green and is going to perform photosynthesis. Talking about the third type of simple permanent tissues, it is sclerenchyma. Sclerinous means hard and chyma means infusion. So they are long, narrow cells with thick and lignified cells having few or numerous piths. So there is going to be presence of pith. These lines that you see, these lines that you see, these lines, these are your piths. So they can be numerous or they can be limited in number. If you look at the cell wall structure, this is how the wall is. There's a primary cell wall and there's a secondary thick cell wall. So primary cell wall is on the outer surface, secondary thick wall is on the inner surface. What are the characteristics? How do you say that certain type of tissue is your sclerenchyma? The cells are elongated, they're short, narrow, thick-walled and lignified. They possess hard and extremely thick secondary cell wall due to uniform deposition of lignin. This is the reason why they're so thick and hard. They are dead cells. Point to remember. And do not perform any metabolic function. Because the cell wall, they have cells that are dead. So dead cells are not supposed to perform any function, so they will be metabolically inactive. They show different type of lignin deposition and also have pits. So amount of lignin deposition can be different, right? In the secondary cell wall, there can be different amount of lignin present, and there's going to be different numbers and of your pith. They're divided into two types majorly, which is your sclerids and your sclerenchymatous fibers. Sclerids are short or irregular, mostly spherical, oval or cylinder in shape. The wall is thick, again irregular, and the lumen is very narrow. The lumen of the cell, that is in the middle, is very, very thin. The wall shows simple pith. These are commonly found in your fruit walls of nuts, plum of fruits like guava, pear, sapatoa, and seed coats of legumes and leaves of tea. These are your examples where your sclerenchyma is present. Why is it important to specify where your sclerenchyma tissues are present? Because they're dead. They're not really performing any function. So having them needs specification where that would be present. Because if you're talking about tissue that has chloroplast or chlorophyll present in them, you can understand that they're going to be around the leaf because they have chlorophyll and they're going to perform photosynthesis. On the other hand, when a plant cell is not doing anything, it needs specification about the existence. The fibers are thick walled, they're elongated and pointed cells, generally occurring in groups and various parts of the plant. These are your sclerenchyma tissues. These are the type of fibers that we see in the transverse section. This is how your fiber will look, and this is how your longitudinal section of fiber looks like. If we talk about the sclerid structures are present around the fiber structure. If you look at the transverse section in the lumen, you can see brachysclerids and macrosclerids. If you look at the lumen of your longitudinal section, you can see osteosclerids, astrosclerids, and your filiform sclerids. So these are a type of sclerid structures that you can see along with your fiber structures in your plant. Now talking about what are the functions, because they're dead, what are they doing? Now because they're dead cells still present can be very, very strong. So they're going to provide you mechanical support and strength to the plant. Surface fibers help in dispersal of seeds. So when your dispersal of seed is taking place, these surface fibers help in that dispersion because they're dead. So the dispersion is easy. So this is how your sclerenchyma works. This completes my simple permanent tissues. And in the simple permanent tissues, things to remember about are your, let's go back to the first slide. So talking about your simple permanent tissues, you're going to, in the simple permanent tissues, structure of the tissue, place of the tissue or location of the tissue, types of the tissue, and function of the tissue. These are the four most important points that you need to remember about each tissue that we've talked about: parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Out of which you need to also remember that parenchyma and collenchyma are living, while sclerenchyma is a dead cell. So this is all about your permanent tissues, simple permanent tissues. In the next lecture, we will start with your complex permanent tissues, which is your xylems and phloems. So talking about that, I would rather prefer that you remember all these because parenchyma are going to come in your xylem and phloem structures. So if you remember parenchyma, you remember the functions and the types of the parenchyma, it would be easier for you to understand the parts of xylem and phloem. So revise this, meet me in the next lecture talking about a new topic. Till then, bye bye, take care.